It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I want to play a game.
Hello and welcome to the Sounds from the Grave podcast. My name is Yussef.
My name is Vania.
And my Scoutmaster once said, if a shortcut is a shortcut, then it isn't named a shortcut. It's called a route.
Yeah, I hope you guys know what this movie is. It is The Ritual. It is a movie that we're going to be talking about today in this podcast.
Yeah, we're going to be doing kind of a deep dive. We both saw the movie. For those of you that don't know about it, it is on Netflix. It's kind of been knocked around Netflix for a while. I personally had heard a couple things about it, but I didn't really know much. But yeah, we were literally looking through Netflix and we were like, what kind of movie can we see on here that's like kind of unknown, that we can talk about for an episode, and we kind of both agreed on that one. And yeah.
It surprises me because I didn't know that the movie was practically almost 3 to 4 years old. It came out in 2017.
Yeah.
So I was like, I didn't realize how old it was. It just seemed more like a 2020 movie, rather than 2017, because it would work during a quarantine if you want to scare your pants off while going to a Swedish place for a vacation. So
yeah, and also while we discuss the film, at one point we're going to be delving into some spoilers, but in order to make sure that you guys, those of you that do want to see the film, we'll make sure to put a disclaimer on there and kind of tell you where to skip so you can avoid some of the spoilers. And also on the YouTube video, I'll just put a timestamp as to where you can kind of go from there if you don't want to get spoiled. But yeah, I think we're just about ready to kind of delve into this and go into as deep as we can.
Yeah.
So Vania, why don't you give us a quick little synopsis as to what the movie is really kind of about?
So we are joined by these British friends under the names of Luke, Robert, Phil, Dom, and Hutch, and they all decide to plan a trip somewhere. They're thinking Amsterdam, they're thinking Las Vegas, but then their friend Robert wanted to go to a hiking trip and he suggested it. They weren't very fond of the idea, so it just turned out with everything that happens in this movie, it's more than they bargained for, especially when they go on the hiking trip.
Yeah. And the thing is, the movie starts off kind of innocent, at least in the first 2 minutes, and then almost immediately it devolves into chaos.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree to an extent.
Yeah.
But the reason is that 2 minutes into the movie, it just goes definitely where it takes a note in a very depressing way. Let's just give it that.
Yeah.
So it's not so much of a spoiler. This is just what kind of sparked everything into place in our story. I think Luke wanted to go grab something to drink at the liquor store. I think it was Robert. So they're in the liquor store discussing the plans about the hiking trip, and then these robbers come in the liquor store, and essentially Luke decides to chicken out and hide in between the aisles, and Robert's looking at him like, what are you doing? And then the robbers come to Robert, and they ask him for his wallet, and he gladly gives it to them. But then when they got really personal with his wedding ring, he didn't want to give that away because it is a marriage symbol. And of course, I guess at this point we can tell he really loves his wife and he didn't want to give it. So, but they realized that they can get a lot of money off of it. So it took them a bit to kind of get it off him until they got basically impatient and they beat him to death, especially with a bat.
Yeah.
So
which is just crazy. Now, before we move on from this scene, I'm curious to know, based on what Luke does where he hides, he looks at one point, he looks at Robert, and it was, what did you think, what do you think his mindset was at the time? Because, in my opinion, I think, he was torn between, I'm too scared to do this, but also like a self-preservation thing of like I'm not gonna let myself be killed by this.
Yeah.
So
I
like
think it's more
a
like,
part of me thinks that he was just like he was literally like petrified with fear because like you can see it in his eyes that he's kind of scared.
yeah. Honestly, when I watched this scene, I honestly thought that he was gonna jump in to action
Mm-hmm.
and also help his friend. But it did kind of course, in his eyes, you could tell that he was just too scared because he also didn't want to risk his own life for
Mm-hmm.
his friend. But I guess that's where the entire movie just plays out.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely like a basis for how the character is gonna act throughout the film. But so yeah, like after that is when we move on to like our next big scene, which is like they jump back a couple months, like they jump forward, and now we have our characters already in Sweden. They're just about to start their hiking trip, and they have like this little memorial for Robert where they put like some personal effects and a picture of him on like this little pedestal. They pour one out for the homies. Um, and then that's when you notice something else between like all four of the characters because they're really good friends. They have this very good relationship, but you can tell that there's something different. Like they all stare at Luke a certain way. Like there's a new tension. It's almost like they all
Yeah.
blame him for Robert's death.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that there is not only tension with Robert, but you could tell that even though they're all good friends, they all have different attitudes about
Mm-hmm.
certain things throughout the entire film. We get to know them on a personality level, and I will go on rants and rants about a certain character. But before we go to that,
Yeah.
we can tell that I think Hutch is the other clutch of Luke. It's kind of like a best friend to him
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. But yeah, so as the movie goes on, they start hiking along, and Dom decides to be a little bitch. Sorry. And he twists his leg, and suddenly, like, he's acting like he's hurt, like he just can't like manage with his own weight, and then there goes the bloody cursing, as we would all call it. And
Yeah.
then of course he does get better in a sense that he starts acting like he's really injured, but then suddenly the walking gets better, so you can tell that he was being very overly dramatic.
Mm-hmm. Like
So
we always have that one person in our friend group that's always like, oh, the world is ending. I fell and like my leg might be broken. I don't know. And just
yeah.
leave me. Go on without me.
Well, not even so much that. I'm pretty sure that Dom wanted, just like everybody else, the trip to be over, because I'm pretty sure he
Mm.
was like another one that wasn't very fond of the idea. But yeah, so he suddenly got better, and they realized that they could try and find some kind of shortcut to make the trip last a little bit less, because
Mm-hmm.
now Dom is injured and all that other stuff. So then they kind of come across like this foresty area, and this is where things get freaking weird.
Yeah,
Is when
this is where like the
they
little
find,
seeds are planted for like what's gonna happen next in terms of like building the tension, building the suspense, and like this is where it starts to get really good.
yeah. So honestly, before I start diving into it more, I thought this movie was a slow burn, so it really takes a bit to actually get to where everything has a significance in the movie itself,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yeah,
So it
and
was a very slow burn movie, so you have to have like a really good attention span, if not like really try to push through it to actually understand and appreciate this movie for
mm-hmm.
what it was. So
Yeah, and what I definitely do like that they take the time to explore the characters, and each character has their own personality, their own little nuances, and they're not like cardboard cutout stuff that you see in every single horror movie. Like these guys have like past traumas. They have tension between like certain characters. So like getting to see that and getting to see that come to a head, seeing like the tension map between them, it's very interesting. It's a very good way to not just build horror suspense, but also build suspense between characters, like as a character study.
yeah. So they come across a 70s van, abandoned, kind of very Scooby Doo-ish and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And it's covered in leaves, but it's also like kind of destroyed in a way. And then along the way, they find a gutted moose on the tree.
Oh
So
god, it's so
yeah,
weird looking. Yeah, it's like this like set of trees, and then like these whoever did this, they like hooked up this moose to like a bunch of ropes, and it's just like crucified. Like half of it's been cut off, and it's like dripping blood all over the forest floor, and it's just like such a creepy image.
yeah. So the fact that this movie, because it's called The Ritual for a reason, it's one of those things that it very much takes root upon Nordic mythology and how what Vikings used to do to people
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. It's called the Spreaded Eagle, and as we all saw, if you guys are also Howling Horror Nights fans, we
Viking
also saw that
undead.
Viking Undead, absolutely. So there's a lot of roots that take a part of the ritual that is actually going to take place in this story.
Yeah.
So I literally was zoning out during this part of the movie until like this particular scene happened because the minute the characters look up at the gutted moose, there's like I guess this is where music comes into play, where it just gives you that really big bang,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, oh shit, what happened? And then you have like the gutted moose in your face, and you
You're
see
like,
the
oh shit.
intestines on the floor, and everything's just wide open, kind of crucified. It looks very gnarly looking, but
Yeah,
gnarly
for sure.
nasty. But yeah.
Yeah, looks pretty sick.
Yeah, so they also
Yeah,
start noticing symbols on the trees.
and
So
they start noticing like hearing sounds in the woods, which is like starting to build the tension again.
yeah,
And then we get these guys are like, all right, the blood is still fresh. We got to keep moving. Like we got to get out of here before whoever did this comes back or comes to like check on it or something.
well, they all
Um,
assumed it was hunters.
yeah,
So
they
that
all
was
assume it was like hunters that did this or just like people that live in the woods or something. Um,
yeah,
but then this is where I think like the movie starts like ramping up some more, and that's when night falls. There's a giant like rainstorm, and in all honesty, I would be terrified to walk through the woods in a rainstorm at night with just a flashlight, because I'm like,
yeah,
I know for sure my ass is gonna get lost.
yeah,
Like that, I just can't do that. Like no matter if I have a compass, doesn't matter if I have a map, my ass is gonna get turned around.
yeah. It's
And
just
like
like
that's
another
just terrifying to me. Like I have a fear of like something like that happening where like I'd be in the woods and I would just get completely lost and get like stuck in the woods.
100% have gone through something like that, but very similarly, but not entirely. It's just literally the worst feeling. Not like in the rain, but just in the woods in general. If you're like not have good sense of direction in the woods, like with rain, forget it. Like you're just fucked in
Yeah, like
general.
that just for me immediately I was like, I don't like this. Just stop, please. Like don't do that. Yeah. And then, they're like, okay, we got to find some shelter because we can't stay out here all night. We got to rest for the night because we don't know, like, we can't really tell where we're going. And they come across this cabin that looks like it's been abandoned for quite a bit. It almost looks like the cabin from like the Evil Dead or like
Mhm.
something like that. And, it's like dirty, it's nasty, and it has a second floor. And they go up the second floor and they see like this weird, like, wicker statue with like just a random head, and it's got like I think it's like a wicker head too, and like moose antlers like sticking out of it, and it's like just the weirdest thing because like
Well,
it almost
it doesn't have like a. Are you talking about the body?
the yeah like the statue like wicker
Well,
body
it
thing.
was like headless, but
Mm,
the hands were
yeah, that's
antlers.
right. They put like the antlers on it. Yeah, and
Yeah, and
it
it was like made out of
yeah
mud. It was made out of trees. It was made out of animal parts, which is with the antlers. So it was a little bit disturbing for the
yeah
friends to.
for like a split second I literally thought it was just going to be a person that was like underneath all of that stuff. Because like
Yeah,
it looks like they had a person, they put a bunch of crap all over him, and then they took his head off, put the antlers on her, and it also kind of looked like something out of Blair Witch mixed with Hereditary.
oh yeah, for
For
sure.
sure,
Like
yeah, like very like ritualistic, but also like the like overall materials that they used to make it look like something out of Blair Witch.
yeah, just the fact that Blair Witch and also Hereditary was like super paganistic. The fact that I feel like a lot of these rituals derive from one another in some shape
Hmm.
or form is literally one of the creepiest things ever. So I totally get that.
Yeah. And I think this particular section of the movie, I think is my favorite scene in the movie. And that's when they're like, okay, let's turn in for the night. Let's go to sleep. We'll keep walking in the morning. And this is
But
kind of when,
hold on. But then in the little, they start discussing of what the hell it could be. And then what's hilarious to me is that Phil suggests, I will pay you $1,000 to sleep with the thing upstairs. I was like, boy, what?
like, don't do that. Come on.
They're like, yeah,
No,
no, we're
I'm
going to
good.
sleep.
Thanks. Yeah.
And the fact that what happens the next morning is kind of ironic. So
Hmm. Yeah, because like they all have different experiences during the night. But then we don't really see what happens to like some of the characters. We really only see what happens to Luke and Phil, where Luke literally has these hallucinations about being back in the liquor store
yeah,
and seeing Robert die again and seeing like this far away like just silhouette of something. You can't really tell what it is.
yeah.
And then he just randomly wakes up and he's just standing outside the cabin like he just sleptwalked. He like sleepwalked over there.
So what I found interesting is when Luke wakes up from the sleep, what he thinks is the sleep, that we do see him looking out the cabin window and he's back at the liquor store. So that's like a kind of a nuance of like he's awake but not really because he keeps reliving the death of Robert. But also this is the first time that he has this hallucination.
Yeah. And yeah, I do like the fact that it is playing on like his sense of guilt as to what happened with Robert, and it's like using that. It's almost like the woods have a mind of their own. It's like they're using that to mess with him. So like after he wakes up, he hears screaming, and he goes to see Hutch, and Hutch has peed himself. And of course
Yeah,
he's all embarrassed and everything, but at the same time,
gray
like
sweats, gray
yeah,
sweats, outlined
yeah,
as
yeah,
fuck.
like it's bad. It's like I kind of feel bad for him for a second there. Because he had
Yeah.
been like a kind of a nice character at the time. He wasn't like an asshole or anything. Like you kind of feel bad for him. He's like he didn't do anything wrong. He just peed his pants. And then you have one of the other characters. You have Dom, like just kind of laying against like the foot of the stairs, and he just keeps saying the word like the name Gale. He's like staring up. He's like Gale, Gale, and it's just like so weird.
It's his wife. That's the name
Yeah.
of his
And then we get to poor Phil. And because Phil's like nowhere to be found, so we're like, okay, maybe he's upstairs. Let's check upstairs. And poor Phil is found kind of frozen on the spot in front of the wicker statue creature thing, on his knees, like praying to
wife.
it, naked, yes, and praying to it, like kneeling down and like bowing to it. And you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. So this is where I think it was ironic. He was like, "I'll pay you $1,000 for you to sleep with the thing upstairs," but he's the very person that's
That
up
ends up
there
being obsessed with
worshiping
it.
it
Yeah.
naked. I was like, "Oh, that's a nice play on words. I
Hmm.
love that,
Yeah.
man."
Oh man, it's pretty crazy. And so at this point they're like, all right, you know what, let's just get dressed, let's get the fuck out of here, let's just keep moving, get out of these woods, and just get find like find stuff for Dom to so he can like we can cure him and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the friends start going through the woods, and little bitch Dom needs.
We're just gonna call him that in the story from now on. We're just gonna keep calling him little bitch Dom.
Yeah. So little bitch Dom knees start hurting again, him being dramatic, and they said, "Could you hold out from the pain for a little bit?" And he's like, "I'm beyond pain. Like if I'm down, I'm down."
Mm-hmm.
So he claims that this is the worst that he's ever felt his knee, and I'm like, "Sure, whatever." So then I think Luke suggests that he's gonna look over the ridge to see if he can see the end of the forest, essentially. And then Luke runs off, and then he sees a creature or something moved between the trees.
Yeah, and it's
And he freaks back down to his friends.
the thing is, it's like you only see this for like a split second, so you can't tell if it's just like some dude in like a giant like fursuit or something, or if it's something more sinister. Because you
Yeah.
literally only just see like, and that's it, it's gone. You're like, what was that?
Yeah, so he says that I saw it, and then they were asking him to describe what it was, and he couldn't really pinpoint it himself. And yeah, so it's crazy.
Yeah, and then at this point too, like now that the characters kind of have like a lull, things come to a head now because Luke is like, all right, like the little bitch Dom, you gotta get moving here. Like we gotta keep moving, and like the tension starts to rise. They get into this huge fight where straight up, little bitch Dom calls him selfish. He calls him a coward for having left Robert to die. Like
Yeah, and
the
then
tension's
they
coming to
start
a head. Yeah,
fight. Yeah, it's bad.
yeah,
And of course, I think Hutch being like the peacemaker of it all, like telling Dom to chill the fuck out because he's being a piece of shit, essentially. I mean, he already knew he was.
yeah.
But then, like, making. I feel like this is where we see Luke kind of man up a little bit and,
Mm-hmm.
like, not own up to it, but in a sense, like, if I'm a little bitch, but then, here I am stepping up to you because
Yeah.
you think I won't fight, like I won't fight you specifically.
Yeah.
So.
I think like the one thing about the scene that was kind of weird to me is like when they kind of acted like little kids because Luke is like, you're not my friend anymore. You're not my friend anymore. I'm like, that's like such a schoolyard thing to say, and I just thought it was really funny.
It's the fact that I think the entire script of this movie was a little cheesy.
A little
Not
bit,
the entire
but
script. Too. It was like, damn, like, why are you gonna put that there? Like, that's cheesy as hell. Like,
yeah,
okay, I mean, I get it.
yeah, like outside of that, it was a really good scene. I think like that kind of took me out of it a little bit. Just him, just like staring him down, me like, you're not my friend anymore.
I think 100% Dom is there to try to be the comedic relief, but it just wasn't working for me.
It wasn't
personally.
working. Yeah. I think he was like just there to be that one character that you're like, okay, he's kind of the voice of reason, but also he's kind of an asshole. And he's like that one character you love to hate. Because there's always a character that you love to hate.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent. So they all stop for, a break, essentially in a tent at night. And then Luke can't sleep. So he starts hearing a whole bunch of rustling and bustling outside, branches crack, eventually growling and roaring. And all of a sudden, he hears a scream outside the tent. And spoiler alert, this is where I'm going to call it spoiler because that's when things really, really tend to build up in the movie, essentially. So Yussef has those in the description for you to skip ahead. But if you're in a podcast setting, I'm afraid I can't help you there. But like, hopefully you can skip ahead to where you need to be. But essentially, Hutch gets taken by the monster or creature or whatever you may call it, whatever entity or whatever, and they start packing up their shit. Not packing up their shit, but they're essentially like grab a couple things and they start running for their lives. And they start looking for Hutch, and then eventually, Hutch is found on a tree, hanging.
Impaled the same exact way as the moose.
And also gutted. Yeah, he was gutted.
Yeah.
That was a really quick death for him. But
yeah, but I do like the fact that you don't like see the death happen. You like all you know about what happened is that like something took him and he's just screaming in the distance, and like you're like, is he? I wonder if he's still okay. Like he's not gonna be okay, but like you're like maybe there's some hope, and then they just pull that away from you.
Yeah, I felt so bad when Hutch got taken. I was like, damn, not him. Like,
yeah, because he was kind of a cool character. I was like, man, why didn't you take Dom? Take little bitch Dom with you.
Yeah, so essentially, after that, they start running, and then they're just telling each other like they need to hold up with their pain. I think Phil was experiencing something, and Dom was also like in pain as always. Whatever, I don't care about him. So they start hustling, and Luke lets them rest for a little bit, and then he starts to look over a hill again. And he tells the guys that he does see an end to the forest, but then Luke notices fire between the trees, and like almost like as if he thinks there was some kind of civilization in some
Mm-hmm.
shape.
Yeah. And this is, like at this point, like night is already starting to fall again because they've literally been walking like all day. So night is starting to fall again. They start hearing noises. They're like, okay, whatever this thing is, it's back.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, fuck it, let's run towards these like lanterns. It's like the only shot that we got at like getting out of here. So they're just
So yeah, he runs back to wherever he might think his friends are, and then he can't find Phil. Yeah. So
yeah.
again, spoiler here, I guess. Technically, it was before. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phil gets taken, and then he's looking for Phil and Dom everywhere, and it's nightfall again, and he's freaking out because he can't find his friends, and but the only screaming voice he hears is Phil, essentially. So then eventually, like he's looking like at a lower level where there's like tree branches like on the bottom, and then he sees like a face looking at him, and it's Dom.
Yeah. It was kind of creepy, but I was like, oh wait, that's just a little bit Dom. Now,
Yeah.
I think it might have been me like not paying 100% attention at this point, but I feel like I got lost like geographically, like in a geographical sense, because I'm like, okay, wait. He ran back, but then he ran somewhere else. So I'm like, wait, how close is he to the fire? Like, where is he right now?
Yeah.
Like, I kind of got lost. I don't know if they did it on purpose. It might have been to like show you, it's like, oh, this dude's like just lost in the woods now. But I felt like I was like, okay, yeah, like I was kind of disoriented, and I was like, wait, how do we end up here?
Yeah. So essentially, he's with little bitch Dom, and they're just huddled. I literally, sorry, I have to make a funny comment here. I literally wrote in my notes, "little bitch Dom."
Yeah,
Anyway.
like I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna call him little bitch Dom for the rest of the podcast. So.
Yeah. So essentially, they start hearing the creature everywhere. They're kind of like disoriented, but then, this is when Luke is asking him like, "Can you move?" Essentially, and then Dom says, "A little," and then I hate the remark that Dom makes. It's like piggyback, and I'm like,
and Luke is like, hell no, no.
Like, you think I'm gonna carry your fat ass across this fucking forest?
Oh,
and then
no.
Luke looks at him, "No, we're gonna run.
We're gonna run. You're gonna run with me."
So essentially, Luke tells Dom that they're gonna run because they hear the monster coming closer, or whatever the entity might be. And then they start running for their lives until they come across a path of fire. And they think this is civilization in some shape or form.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, no, well, not to mention, too, like, before this happens, that's when they come across, like, they kind of stumble onto Phil's body.
Oh,
and
no.
And of course, poor guy is stuck on a tree.
Spread eagle? No, it's not spread eagle.
No, I think he's just like I think he's just like
spread.
impaled on the tree or something.
Yeah, but I think
Jeez.
got it maybe. Yeah, they just like getting impaled by trees.
Like whoever's doing this or whatever's doing this, like they have a tree fetish.
Yeah, tree king.
Oh yeah, so like they run into they keep following the path of fire, and eventually they just come across this giant wall of wood, and they're like, okay, it's like some sort of like compound, some sort of like camp for these people. So they get taken over there, and straight up they get taken prisoner,
and they get kicked in the face, knocked out, and then they wake up and they're kind of like in a very awful situation, like almost prisoners in some sense or form.
Yeah, like they wake up and it's like a little cabin chained to the wall. And then you're just like, oh, geez.
Yeah, so that's a really warm welcome for
Yeah.
a little dungeon type thing. So mind you, they're in the woods, they're lost and
Hmm.
stuff. And then Luke wakes up, and Dom, I guess, was already woken up. I think Dom was calling him to wake up and
Yeah, I think
whatever.
so too, or something like that.
Then a group of people come in with this old lady who offers Dom water. Dom drinks it, and then she grabs his shirt, pulls it down, and then he has like
Oh no,
a
Luke has
weird.
this. Yeah, Lucas is offered water, and he's the one that has the like points on his chest.
Yeah, yeah, my bad. It was Luke who had the points on his chest. Um, kind of not like an X, but it's a really like
It's just
weird
like a
symbol.
series of like dots, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
then not only that, the old lady reveals that she has the same markings. So it's almost like
yeah,
he's been marked for something.
yeah.
It's weird.
So we don't exactly know at this point, or yeah. So then she kind of looks at Dom, and she's like,
He's a little
"You're not
bitch.
worthy," kind of thing. He's a little bitch essentially. So then she tells something to like the people that she was helping, and essentially they just grab him and take him out of the room. And I'm like, where is he going? So
So yeah, then like at this point things are escalating now, and this like group of people at one point they just take Dom, little bitch Dom. They take him away they torture him. So when they bring him back, he's the poor guy's like all bloodied up. He's just beat the shit out of him, and that's when he tells Luke, "Hey, like I never told you about the dream that I had, and like about what happened in the cabin." And he says, I saw Gail, who's my wife. And I saw myself getting taken by these people and being sacrificed to something. And he essentially accepts that he's gonna die. He's like, "Hey, I'm not gonna make it out of here. Like, you have to carry on without me. Like, just destroy this place. Like, set it on fire if you have to. Just destroy it."
so they tie him up to like a little pole that's kind of very similar to what you see on Midsummer. And then he kind of starts taunting the people, telling them like, "What are you waiting for? Just pull the like essentially pull the trigger, do whatever you need to me, and whatnot." So we see Luke that he made a hole through the wall, and you just see him trying to like break his finger
Oh
essentially.
yeah, like that was just ooh,
Yeah,
because he's just like prepping himself. He's like doing this whole thing. Where he's just like, "Okay, here we go," and he just
yeah,
goes crack, and I'm like, "Oh no!" Like I know you're doing it to
yeah.
escape, but like, ugh.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable. And then he's like trying to do it before Dom essentially is sacrificed in a sense. So then we hear the roaring of the beast or the entity or whatever you may want to call it. And then all the people start bowing down. And then, spoiler alert, this is when Dom sees his wife, or what he thinks is his wife, kind of coming through the woods, touching his face, like saying his name. And then he thinks that it's her. But then we are cut to a shot where the creature or whatever
It's
it
like,
is is
yeah,
touching
like
his face.
yeah, like
Yeah.
this is where we get like our big creature reveal, and like we see what has been like stalking these guys like since they got into the woods.
Yeah. So you
And
just think
yeah,
it's just like a tree giant, that kind of thing, with like a demon esque type of it's like a tree demon kind of
yeah, but it also kind of
thing.
looks like it's like shaped like a moose because it kind of walks around like a moose. Just like
Yeah,
it's like standing on four legs.
and it has like extra arms too,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
got like its
weird.
like its regular like face, which is weird because it's like a shape of a face, but like just eyes and just like
Yeah,
black for the rest of it. And then like to the side of that, it's just like these human arms that just like grab stuff, and you're like, "Ugh, I don't like that. It's
yeah. This
gross."
reminds me a little bit of Krampus, just a teensy bit
Mm.
about it. So, um, essentially, he thinks it's his wife until the creature kind of yeets him to the air, like, "Surprise, bitch, it's me," that kind of thing. When he's like kind of carrying Dom by the face to impale him to a tree. So we essentially see Dom's death where he gets impaled to the tree and essentially he dies.
Yeah.
Prophecy fulfilled. that kind of thing. Not prophecy fulfilled, but his dream essentially. And then we finally see Luke escape, and he kind of doesn't know what to do in this cabin because it's just like, I don't know if I should walk out, do something, grab
Yeah.
something, or whatever. So essentially, he becomes a very curious cat and goes upstairs, and because he hears like the monster that he thinks Dom was facing earlier before he got sacrificed. So he opens the door, and it gets way, way more creepier than just the creature itself.
Well, no, it's not even the creature yet. It's like literally a room just filled with like people that like some of them are still alive, some of them are like have been dead for a while. It's almost like a church.
Yeah, it's like a stuffed people
Yeah,
with
it's
like,
weird. Like it's just weird.
so
Yeah.
essentially he has a torch in his hand and starts setting those people ablaze, whatever
Yep.
those were.
And he's like,
Uh,
burn the bitch.
yeah, he did it so nonchalant, like he didn't even flip
Yeah,
out.
he just like touches it. He's like, he just like pokes them with like the torch, and they just light on fire.
He's like, you've been blessed, you've been blessed, you've been blessed. The weirdest
You're on
thing.
fire.
So essentially, after he's done lighting whatever he needed to on fire, people start to notice. And then the lady that kind of showed him the mark was staring at him like, "Bro, why are you out from your chamber?" kind of thing. And then he punches her, and it's like,
which kind of just cracks me up because like every time, I don't know why, every time like an old lady gets punched, like as if she was like a heavyweight boxer, like she gets like sucker punched. I don't know why. It's like the funniest thing to me because I'm like, why do you have to be so extra about it and just like sucker punch her like that?
yeah, it was
like just like push her or something, you know, just like punch her in the face.
just knocked out, just like that.
It's like you think you're like Mike Tyson or something.
Yeah, essentially. Oh, and I think we skipped a little bit too ahead. We did have a character come in that was the only one that spoke English and explained what this creature or might have been. She said that it was essentially Loki's offspring and what is known as a Jotun. From Nordic mythology, essentially. We will go into that a little bit deeper after the discussion and whatnot. But essentially, she explains that it's just something that it needs to be sacrificed, and they were the chosen people, so they could have immortality because that's what this Jotun is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're essentially just like serving this god so they can be immortal and not just that, just not get killed by it.
Yeah. So they're more afraid of it rather than more appreciative. But they have to worship it to live.
Yeah, like they're doing it because they have to, type of thing.
Yeah. So essentially, after he punches the lady in the face, my bad. He comes across this room full of weapons, and so essentially he grabs a shotgun, and then as soon as he comes out of the room, there's like another person there. Then he just eats them in the face with a gun. It's
saying, boom, you're done.
Yeah, I think this is where the whole kind of movie is a little cheesy because it's kind of like
a little bit.
There's no combat. It's just like, what are you doing? Just shoot him in the face. That's
boom,
it.
Done.
There's no combat. There's no resolution.
Yeah.
So he goes outside and finally goes face to face with the Jotun. It's a really, I think it's more of a not face to face with the Jotun, but he's kind of hiding. But then, of course, eventually gets noticed by the Jotun when he's
no, he gets himself noticed because the Jotun is literally just like grabbing like the girl that he had talked to earlier, and out of nowhere, where he could have just like literally just run away from it, he decides to shoot it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, why'd you do that? Just run away. Like it's not looking at you. It doesn't even like notice you. But then you shot at it. You're like, of course it's gonna notice you.
Yeah.
Like it's a giant moose tree creature thing. It's not gonna get knocked down by a shotgun blast. Like, oh my god.
horror movie
So of
logic. We
course
love it.
this thing is just like what?
Yeah.
Like it just turns around so quickly, and he just like has this look on his face where he's like, "Well, fuck," and just like books it.
God. Essentially, yes, he does. Boot like basically books it and whatnot. But this is, I think I forgot to mention that there is a type of symbolism to this movie where we do see the liquor scene happen 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And in this scene where he books it, the same setup happens again, where we do see the liquor store set up in the middle of the woods as he is being chased off by this Jotun, essentially. And he's basically trying to make his way through the woods, and it's starting to get into morning time. So this is when the movie kind of gets a little confusing in a sense.
I don't think it was confusing for me because I think it's just like this is like his big character arc because this is when he realizes he has to stand up for himself, whether it's for him or the people in his life. So he straight up just like stops, gets like the creature gets up close and personally, just stares it down.
Yeah, so the reason why I say it's confusing is because I get that he's like the final guy, but it's more like why him? Why was he chosen? And why did the end battle end up the way it was, rather than being this really big, kind of not a confrontation where he's fighting for his life? Because the Jotun just seemed pretty not like chill about it, not laid back about it. It's like another word for it. Like it's just more like he was afraid to touch him in a sense.
Yeah, or almost like like that type of thing where the Yoda's like, oh, like maybe he's like not afraid of me, so like it has like respect for him, so he's like, all right, then just leave my woods.
I mean, but he did like pounds him down, get back up. He ran out of the woods and they just had like this whole screaming
Yeah,
whatever
where he's just like, it's almost like this like we'll meet again.
Yeah,
type
it
of
was
thing. But
very
I think it was
weird.
kind of like a primal thing where he's like, man has bested nature, or like, like I stood up to you, like I earned my way out of these woods, and he's
But
just
that's
like
the
letting
thing.
out this stream of like just wild, like I did it, like you didn't stop me.
That's the thing. I think it has to do very much it has to trace somewhat back to Robert's death, I think.
Well, I
Because
think and I think like that's what they get when he just like when the creature doesn't do anything to him, when like the creature just realizes like it's he's past it, like he's accepted what's happened, he's accepted what he did or what he didn't do.
it could be like that.
Yeah.
It's just like we see this liquor store scene 3 times. First time he's freaked out. Second semi freaked out. This one he wasn't even paying attention to it. He was just kind of like whatever, fuck it, like I'm out. That
exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. So at this point he's just like I already know what happens. Like I can't change that. It's already been done.
Yeah.
So like he's just accepted what's happened.
But the thing is, like, for me, it's like, why was he chosen? Or, like, I get that he was the protagonist and he was marked and all this other stuff. But for me, it's like the marking is what I'm not understanding. Of course, him being one of them, but why him, essentially?
It could be because of that same reason, because of, like, his cowardice or, his selfishness in a way or something. So yeah, it's kind of pretty much like what happens, because like right after he escapes the woods, the movie just ends. Like it just kind of stops right there.
I honestly thought it was very anticlimactic, like
a little bit.
Yeah, because it's just like I thought there was going to be a bigger resolution where he escapes out of the woods, comes back to London, and eventually has to tell like his friend's family what happened and that kind of thing. But I mean, I get why it would leave at that kind of note and whatnot. There's a lot that I just think. I think Phil was like a vessel in this movie for some odd reason, because the fact that he was like worshiping the thing in the beginning, or in the first encounter. Then there was the second encounter where he was just having like I guess, like hallucinations, because he never really got sick in a
Yeah,
sense, not like Dom, but he was becoming weaker because there has to be like a link, like he almost like
like he's the
was,
reason it kind of tracked them almost like he was like their GPS for the creature or something.
yeah. So it was like really weird. But I also think that there was like I think, like I said, a lot of the characters had a purpose for the story to linger on, because I feel like Phil was like kind of like a vessel. Hutch was like the reason why the friendship was stuck together, because he was like, not, I honestly think Hutch was the voice of reason of like, hey, like I get it, we're all going through some
Mm-hmm.
shit, we need to move. Dom, as much as he was a little bitch, like he was also like the one who told him what to do based on the dream, like basically
Mm-hmm.
the answers to like Luke's resolution
Yeah,
and
like
his,
he kind of redeems himself at the end by like being like, okay, so this is literally what's
yeah,
gonna happen. What you're gonna have to do, like you're gonna have to pull your head out of your own ass and get out of here.
yeah, and then eventually it's something that Luke had to overcome on its own without his friends already
Mm-hmm.
being sacrificed in
Yeah,
some shape or form.
yeah. It was essentially it was
So
about him having to find inner strength.
yeah, and the fact that I think they have, I'm just wondering why. So Sweden is, of course, I learned from my friend who's very educated in like Nordic mythology. It's interesting to me that Sweden, I think Denmark, some of Europe, and like Norway itself, they all believe in this Nordic religion or
Yeah,
like whatever.
it's because it's a lot of like the Scandinavian area where pretty much the majority of Viking population lived, and they a lot of them practice that paganism.
Yeah. So I'm just like wondering, oh, what drew them so close to like having a movie about essentially hiking, a horror hiking movie, and why they chose something as the Jotun, because the Jotun is in Norse mythology is literally like a giant. You know, like it's
Mm-hmm.
not. They say like the offspring of Loki, but Loki had a lot of offsprings.
Yeah, and I think you know how they say like Loki was like a trickster and stuff. Like maybe this version of whatever it was, um, I feel like it kind of preyed on fear.
Yeah.
Like it essentially ruled the people in that camp by fear because like they didn't have a choice.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, but I think like but why, since Loki was a trickster, why? I think it comes into play to the hallucinations of Luke, where it would put the scenery of the liquor store in the woods out of nowhere.
Mm,
I think that's where the trickster part really takes place, because it's like tricking his mind to reliving that time
yeah,
every single time. But I don't know so much about the fear part, because I don't think Loki also strives on fear. But there's also like, if it's the, unless it's all of his kids together,
mm,
because um, there's Hela, which is the queen of hell, essentially. So maybe that's where the fear, like the fear of fear is, you
yeah.
know?
Or maybe not like it preyed on fear, but like it liked to just rule by fear essentially, something like
Yeah,
that. Because I noticed that like it was purposely playing mind games on them to kind of get them afraid,
yeah,
especially with Phil. Because Phil, I think the reason that he was kind of that vessel is because he was the most like he was like the weakest one in terms of how easy it was to prey on his mind.
yeah,
Because he was the one that freaked out and got scared by the creature itself, like not you know, and even by like the situation, like he was the one that was kind of panicky about everything.
yeah. I get you, but yeah, but I think that Dom was the only one that was trying to be the most logical about everything,
Mm-hmm.
despite everything that was happening. You
Yeah,
know, it's like really weird, because they're like, he basically was telling them like, stop being little bitches, and just like just we like, you're not going insane, we're not going insane. I guess he kind of blamed it a lot on the woods and what they had seen in that cabin rather than what they were experiencing.
Yeah. But so yeah, that's kind of just a quick breakdown there. But now I'm curious, if you were to give it like a numerical grade out of 10, what would you give it?
Do you really want to know that answer?
Yeah, I'm curious to know. Yeah, because I'm curious to like as to how different my answer would be, if it's any different.
Story wise, it was a good story to be told. But it was a slow burn for me. I just wish there was more explaining about why it preyed so much on Luke. I mean, I guess we can dissect it because we all know that film is meant for the viewer's perspective or
Mhm.
whatever we may want to go on that, but it just leaves a lot of unanswered questions, in my opinion. Especially about like how Luke was essentially like, why was this like such a big deal, you know?
Mhm.
Like within the religion or of them, you know, like like if that's the way to find redemption is to overcome it, then a lot of people should have known that, the ones in the village.
Or
I could
maybe yeah, or maybe they just didn't. Maybe they liked being there and just liked the immortality aspect of it, or they were just too scared to overcome it. Like they
but did,
just,
but did they actually become immortal, which is what
well,
I'm trying,
maybe they thought they were immortal.
unless the people that were in that little churchy area on the top of the cabin was the immortality, but it's more like a plant base. Like once they become, I guess,
They
old or
become or like they become the forest essentially.
they become the forest essentially. Oh, I mean, that's a good point. I honestly would rate a 7
Yeah,
out
it's
of 10.
pretty close to what I would give it. I
Yeah,
I I would give it an 8 from like a technical standpoint because sure the story isn't like it's a little open ended, but I appreciate that because I like that it leaves it open to interpretation. Like it gives us the opportunity to do what we're doing, which is just discussing like what we think happened or like why we think this happened. Um,
yeah.
and then again from the technical standpoint, like the acting was pretty good. The dialogue was kind of weak.
Mhm.
The characters were interesting. They were different. They had personality to them. Um, the way this movie was shot and like the camera angles and the lighting, I think was the best part of it. Especially like when they're like during the night scenes when he's like looking out like at the forest with the flashlight, where you see all you see is like the branches of the trees, like with no leaves and anything like that. And it was just it was just gave it such a big sense of isolation and like just creepiness.
I'm curious, where did you watch this movie?
I
On
watched it
your
on
TV?
Yeah, I watched it on my TV.
So I may have to disagree with you on the night lighting because I don't know if it's the way I
Mm-hmm.
watched it. I watched it on my computer because I guess it helps me focus more because I know that this was a slow burn movie. But I thought that the daylight lighting was beautiful.
Oh
Like,
yeah, it's a beautifully shot movie, especially like with the wide shots of like the forest from far away, or when they're walking down this like mountain path. Like
yeah,
it's beautiful to look at.
for me, it was more of like when they were walking in between the trees. There's just so many that it's
Mm-hmm.
causing disorienting feeling, and especially like the close-up shots of the characters when they're just feeling a certain way, and the fact that they. But for me, I gotta disagree on the night lighting. The lighting that I will applaud them 100% is the one where Luke is looking out the cabin and we see the liquor store. Like you cannot pull that off most of the time, especially if they did this actually out in the woods where they created a whole ass freaking liquor store, like to when they opened the door. Great. If it's in a soundstage, even better.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter to me. I think that's the only lighting I will applaud. Like, but the night lighting was just so grainy and blotchy to me. At least from the way I saw it.
Because
I saw
for
a lot of
me,
blotch.
I what I liked is that you couldn't. It wasn't like typical night lighting where you can see everything kind of looks like in blue. Like they only lit what the flashlight could actually reach.
I mean, there were some scenes that you did see like the moon lighting, which is
Hmm.
blue
Yeah,
and
but
all that
like I
stuff,
think
which is
like
why,
specifically because I mean like specifically in the cabin, like when he's staring
yeah,
out of the cabin through the flashlight, all you see is the light of the flashlight. There's no other lighting in there.
yeah, that is true.
Yeah, because like I do like they kind of went in certain aspects. They kind of went for realistic lighting because there's no lights out there. The moonlight isn't that strong. All you will literally see is what your flashlight would allow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it's just a lot of the outside night lighting was a little blotchy, in my opinion, which is why I was like, why? Like, why? I can
I
see the blotches.
I would agree with that on the lighting of the creature. I wanted to see more of the detail on the creature. I feel like it wasn't lit properly, or like the lighting model on the CGI thing wasn't properly done. Because the only
Yeah,
thing you can really see is like the hands, but you don't really see a lot of the actual like detail of the creature, like hair or like features
I don't think
itself.
it has hair. I don't think it
I
had hair. I
don't
think it was more.
know. I couldn't really tell though.
It was more. I kind of want to call it like a skinless cat. I would. That's
I can
how
see
I would
something like that. Yeah.
describe. It's kind of like I guess a second layer of the skin, and then I see in this picture that I'm looking at right now that there is like the bones are sticking out on the back,
Mm. See, like
and
that's like details that I personally didn't notice because I couldn't see them.
yeah, and also I mean the things that stuck out. I mean it does have hair on the legs, so I see the picture here, and then it has what was very unique about this character or the Yoan is that it had the head design. It has like a person like on it. It's
Mm-hmm.
really weird. And I mean, I thought it was like it really does symbolize like a sacrificial type god where
Mm-hmm.
it just requires a lot of sacrifice. But it's weird because it's like almost like a mammoth that it has the antlers, then the head, but it's a body. But then when it's grabbing someone, it's using hands, but it reminds me of tusks of
Mm.
a mammoth. And but the thing underneath, I can't really tell what that
Yeah,
is. So
like
I'm
I
sure
like the
that's just
cause
lost detail.
yeah, because I like the overall design of it. I just wish I could see more of the detail. Like
Yeah.
that was my biggest issue with the actual creature.
Hmm.
And then me being me, I also have an issue with the fact that the creature is in the film to begin with.
Hmm.
Because you know that I personally I happen to like horror movies that deal more with like the human element of things. So I at least for me as a horror movie, it would have been more effective from my personal standpoint if there was no creature. It was just like this cult of people that worship this creature, but it doesn't actually exist. Like they're just crazy enough that they just believe it does.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with you because that's where I thought this movie was gonna go. Like they were just gonna come across a group of people, kind of like Midsummer and whatnot. But as there's like this article here that it says that the ritual fits easily in the folk horror space, which has gone to see more success with hits like Ari Aster's Midsummer and 2020's Gretel and Hansel,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets a lot of mixed reviews and audience and critics. So I'm guessing I've never seen Gretel and Hansel, the 2020 version,
Yeah, I
but
haven't seen it
like
either.
with Midsummer, I do have to agree when we're thinking about ritualistic movies, we think about people getting involved in some really fucked up shit and
Yeah,
doing fucked up shit, you know. And Hereditary is another one
yeah.
that revolves around real people, not real people, but like of a ritualistic aspect
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean
thing.
it's something similar to the Wicker Man. Like they worship this giant deity, but the deity is actually it's just never there. It's just it's all in their heads essentially. Like, and I've always appreciated the fact that people can get so wrapped up in belief that they will kill or they would hurt innocent people based on like what they think is a true thing.
Yeah. And for me, I feel like it would be a little bit more interesting if there was not just this is just from I guess from a standpoint, at least in my opinion, is that if it was with people that were doing crazy shit, to just really have someone like act like they're the god or like there's some fucked up leader within it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that also leaves the movie more open ended, so that I feel like that wouldn't solve the problem. So never mind.
Yeah, I feel I would have preferred it to be just like a cult of just people who worship the Jotun.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
that's just again, that's just my thoughts. That's just what I find most effective in horror movies. Like I personally like when there's not really like a supernatural element to it. I like the realistic stuff.
yeah. I mean, I agree, especially when it comes to realistic stuff. I mean, it's an interesting take on Nordic mythology. It would be
For
cool
sure.
if we could get a movie um based. I mean, I'm pretty sure there is, but I'm just unaware of it. Of like Viking mythology with all that kind of culty stuff,
hmm
which I feel like that's what something that they could have done, but they decided to Jotun, so it's fine.
Hey, it's interesting because I hadn't seen anything like it before. You know,
Yeah,
like at least where they have like a whole creature, where they have like reasons for why the creature exists, or like reasons for why the characters are in there and stuff like that.
yeah, I
So yeah,
agree.
yeah, but yeah, I think we went pretty in depth with like not just the movie itself, but like our thoughts on it.
Hmm.
And I think we're just gonna end it here.
So yeah, if you guys want to check out the ritual, go ahead, see it for yourself. If you're anything like me, pay attention, watch it on a computer screen, sit up because it is a slow ass burn movie, but it is a worth a watch, especially if you like funny British people fighting, and yeah, and a lot of weird ritualistic shit. So
Yeah, and if you guys do watch it, like leave a comment if you're watching the video, or send us like a message on Twitter. Like, tell us your thoughts on it. Like what did you guys think, or like did you agree or did you disagree with our points? Like we'd love to have a discussion about it because as you can see, we were just having a lovely time discussing it now. And if we could
yeah,
include more people in that, that would be a lot more fun too.
yeah.
But yeah, so then Vanya, where can we find you social media wise?
You can find me at HHN Cultist on both Twitter and YouTube. I post makeup vlogs and anything horror related, especially Halloween Horror Nights updates. I just recently uploaded a HHN speculation video based on the Horror Night Nightmares speculation map 5, which is, well, it has already been out, but something that it might change, of course, as we get closer to HHN season where we're already dealing with like rumors that are soon to come.
Exactly. And for the podcast itself and the YouTube channel, you can find it on YouTube and on Twitter and Instagram as Sounds from the Grave. I'm trying to be a little bit more active on the Twitter. I just been so busy that I haven't had a chance to like go on Twitter regularly and update it. But I will try to be more active on that and just like post like random thoughts on something in the horror community, or I'll even ask for like recommendations of like, hey, like what are some movies that we can watch for the channel, or if for the podcast, or what are some cool things that you've seen horror wise that you think would be interesting to discuss or like talk about. So yeah, don't ever be afraid to reach out to us if you're listening.
And where can
Um,
we find you personally?
and then personally, you can find me on YouTube as just Yussef Sabat, on Twitter at it'd be Yussef, and on Instagram as Yussef1220. Those I post more of like regular, just other stuff that I'm into, like science fiction and like fantasy and action movies, and my love for crappy 80s schlock films.
To an extent.
Yeah, and also just like random video game stuff. So, the nerdy stuff in life.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll catch you guys later.
Yeah, and if you get a chance, watch The Ritual if you think it might be a good movie that you might enjoy. And also remember, if you smuck, you will die.
Yep. Deal.
Bye, everybody.